All right. So we're back here once again on another episode of Commanders in the Chat, episode 63. What's going on, Rob?
Another day. Got the Monday night game. Eagles. They not looking too eagerly today.
Yeah.
Dallas may just be the team to beat in the East
For now. That's the operative word. We
for now.
we got on Thanksgiving. We can see the real NFC East champions, come in. But
Yeah,
it's all
that
good. We're
could
here.
be. That could be.
Yeah. I mean, and we got them in week 18. So hey, they might have won the war, but we'll win that battle. So they
Oh,
look
for
good
sure.
now, but we got some stuff cooking for
It
sure.
also depends on what the Giants end up being because we're
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
basing that off of people assuming that the Giants were going to be another playoff team, not only a
yeah,
playoff contender but a contender for the division as well. It
yeah.
seems like Commanders are the only team that nobody ever really gave a chance this season. But if the Giants
And,
end up being terrible, if they end up being a 5, 6, 7 win team, then that 40-0 win doesn't really look as good as it did, Sunday night when it was done.
right, and that's the thing about all that when you put in that factor too, and plus we know firsthand a team looks different from week one to in
Oh
the
yeah,
middle of the season towards the end of the season,
oh
especially
yeah,
how we have made some of these runs as of late. We are a completely different team than when we were in week one. So, it's early, but yeah, man, it is something. So, and it's funny that we lead now with our recap of last Sunday's game where the Washington Commanders won by the final score of 22-16, and excellent turnout at FedEx Field, man. What was your thoughts on this game, on this nail biting victory? What you got?
Um, it wasn't the comfortable win that we both had predicted. We both predicted a 31-point showing by this team. The offensive line needs to improve. That was obviously the biggest thing. That's what everybody was talking about Monday morning. Is how the offensive line needs to improve, and also in combination with Sam Howell holding on to the ball too long. He didn't do the O line any favors there, but I think the initial problem is the O line. Allowing 6 sacks is something that we thought our defense was going to be doing, which our defense played great. And I think
Mhm.
Montez Sweat got shafted in not winning NFC Defensive Player of the Week um, over Jesse Bates. Understand he had 2 picks. He played great for Atlanta, but at the end of the day, Montez Sweat almost pretty much single handedly won us that ball game on Sunday. Um, I we thought that Eric Bieniemy's offense is going to be more prevalent in this game, and it really looks like this team just needs more time to gel in that system. Third down defense was third down defense was solid. 4 for 14. Eagles got 4 out of the 14 opportunities they had. Uh, that was the last 2 seasons. Me and you, we harped on it. So we sound like a broken record at certain points of each of the last 2 seasons on third down defense. It could be third and 99, and we give up the first down somehow, some way. Um, and lastly, got to get the run game more involved. Having 92 yards rushing as a team, um, it's not going to bode well for getting late into the season. Mind you, we play on the East Coast. The DMV gets snowy, rainy in the winter. So does Philadelphia. Um, so does East Rutherford. Like those are the places we're gonna have to play late in the season where we need a run game, and rushing for 92 yards as a collective. It worked obviously for who a lot of people are thinking they're tanking for Kelly Williams, who are presumed to be the worst team in the league this year. It's gonna work for a team. Going to work against a team like that, but when you go up somebody like the Cowboys who have that front seven, a lot like ours, a feared front seven. You have Michael Parsons coming out the edge. Like that run game needs to be that run game needs to be a lot better than what it was on Sunday.
Yeah, and then that's what you look at it just from that standpoint. Like it was a lot. It was a lot to be desired in this game. Like you said, we figured this was going to be an opportunity for this to at least have somewhat of a successful offensive output. I know we talked about 31, so that got tempered really early. Um, you get the win, and I know a lot of people look at this Arizona team as well. They might be arguably the worst team in the league, and your boy might stay another year. Is that bad in Arizona, according to a lot of people? But um, we knew this Arizona defense was good. That's one thing we harped on last week. Hey, they got up guys that can make plays. You look at obviously that Sam Howell fumble that led to Arizona lone touchdown. So you think to yourself, defensively, we held them. I mean, you think about if it wasn't for that turnover, it literally would be a 9-point game. Essentially, that's where they really got their points off the turnovers. And like you said, Montez Sweat, his sack, Jonathan Allen. So you look at we had 3 sacks on a game. So you look at that, and then like you said, then that's really concerning me is his offensive line. Sam Howell getting 6 sacks, and that's going into what we talked about last week. I thought that was going to be the biggest advantage for him. Him pretty much almost having a clean jersey because that pass rush really, you didn't have any double-digit sack guys in there. And now you think to yourself, you had 6 sacks on Sam Howell. And the good thing about and Sam Howell is who we thought he was. Like I kept on harping in the offseason, he's gonna get hit. He gonna pick back up, and he gonna come back and do his thing. So to me, you look at that, he's made, and we even said he's gonna make some mistakes, but he was able to persevere and bounce back. And I think that talk about people of the past, but like he had that mental toughness, that mental makeup, unlike what we seen with Carson Wentz, where in this particular, if he got sacked 6 times, he loses a fumble recovery in the second quarter, he'd have been down in the dumps. But Sam Howell got himself together, engineered a fourth quarter comeback, and we won the football game. And this is one of those where you just come out with the win, you just improve on it week in and week out. Obviously, I know people poo-pooing it, but we know in the NFL winning is hard. So, and, in Arizona, even though the organization, the people upstairs are tanking, but these players are playing hard. And I talked about that last week. Don't get it twisted. You got grown men that got to feed their families. They're not gonna back down. So it is what it is. But we got away with a win. The atmosphere was fantastic. I mean, you think about just all the stars, and that just lets me know it's a turnaround. I mean, this place was a sellout. We are headed in the right direction.
Yeah, the stars. When you talk about the stars, KD was there. He was up in the box. Our boy RG3 was up in the box with the owner.
Yep.
I think Matthew McConaughey was there.
Yeah, you know what's crazy about all that? It's like KD and McConaughey went to the U.S. Open. I'm like, man, look, I want to live that life.
I'll do you one better. I'll do you one better. Matthew McConaughey was at the Texas Alabama game the night before.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
So, I mean, yeah, when we say the stars were there, it's seeing the atmosphere, even watching it on TV. I even tweeted at one point. I think at one point when we were losing, I even asked Twitter, what's the vibe like at FedEx Field? And one person replied, "We're loud, but we're upset." He said, "We're loud, but we're upset," which means like the fans are there. It was completely sold out. I don't know when the last time we had a completely sold out game was. Last time that I can remember off the top of my head for sure was a Week 17 game against Dallas in 2012 with the division on the line, RG3's rookie season. Yeah. But man, yeah, just to see what the vibes were like, it was dope. It was really cool.
Yeah, and now we fast forward. Now this team is going west, so we got our preview now with our this week's opponent, the Denver Broncos. This will be the 16th meeting between these two teams. Obviously, there was one postseason that was the Super Bowl in 1988. So Denver leads the series 8-7. So and another key nugget: the last time that Washington went to Denver and won a game in Denver was November 18th, 2001. It's been a house of horrors for the Denver Broncos for us in Denver. So we got to bring out our special guests. If obviously, if you follow, watch Couch Coach Live, this is one of my guys. He comes on the show very often. He pretty much one of our honorary couch coaches. Our guy Jordan Long. We'll bring him in right now. What's going on, Jordan?
Not much, man. I mean, you guys are 1-0. I'm sitting here 0-1 because of my kicker. I'll just leave it to that. Kicker, special teams, gotta love it.
Yeah, and that's the thing where you just look at it just from that standpoint. So, Joe, we want to definitely get your thoughts on. So we'll first start off with some Washington versus Denver memories. What you got, Jordan?
Well, I'm going to go back to 1995. It was a tied ball game. Of course, John Elway unfortunately broke you guys' hearts in Mile High on the final play of regulation, found John Elway to Rod Smith for a touchdown. We won 38-31. One game that I luckily just saw highlights of and don't remember, and you touched on it, was the Super Bowl. I know my dad talks about this all the time, that, we were ahead 10-0. We're thinking, okay, we're in the driver's seat. Then, unfortunately, in football, there's 3 quarters to play, and then you outscored us 45-0 and won 45-10. A string of 4 straight Super Bowl losses for us, unfortunately. But, this series is always fun. I remember the last game, what was it, 3 years ago we played you guys, and that came down to the final because neither one of our guys could hold on to the football at the end. We were just lucky we came out with a victory.
Halloween. I'll never forget that as long as I live. Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Wasn't that like a rainy game though?
I believe so, yeah.
It's an ugly game. So, Rob, what's your Washington versus Denver memories? What you got?
So I don't have to go as far back as 1995, but I do have to go a little bit back. We're rocking the 2018 season. Week, I believe it was week 16. It was Kirk Cousins as the helm. Started off, it was kind of a sloppy game to begin with. A couple field goals to open by each team, and then Brock Osweiler did what Brock Osweiler does, and had a fumble. He threw a pick, and so it ended up being not a very close game. It ended up being a 27-11 ball game. I think that was our last year with Kirk Cousins. I think that game got us to 500 or one game below 500. Yeah, definitely week 16. And then a couple weeks later, Kirk was gone.
Yeah, because that was Christmas Eve of 2017. Because I got that as one of my memories as well. Yeah. See, I tell you, man, we think alike.
Well, we do.
I don't even remember that game, but that's because we've been bad so long and since Super Bowl 50 that all these losses just kind of combined for me anyway.
We know the feeling.
Yeah. Oh, well, do we? For sure. And you know what's funny about that? It's a lot of, I don't know, it's weird. So, and I, talk about that Christmas Eve game. And you think to yourself, okay, Jameson Crowder scored in that game. Now he's back with Washington.
And
right?
that was one thing I meant to bring up too. He scored the first touchdown of the game on a little slant route. I think he ran a little sluggo. And then, he's back, and let's see if he can do it again.
And Rob's favorite wide receiver of all time that made him mad because we drafted Jahan Dotson, our guy.
Josh Dotson.
Josh Dotson from Texas Christian University.
He hit him on a wide open pass, too. I remember they ran like a trips bunch.
Yeah.
And defense just let Dotson go, which I don't blame them. I would have let him go too.
Yeah.
I say, don't even worry about him. That's like when you play pickup basketball and one person is standing behind the 3-point line, and let him shoot. Go ahead, let him. Most disrespectful thing you could do. You talk about my mama before you just look at me and say, let him shoot.
And then we had a shout out to the golden leg himself, from the University of Florida State University. Rob's favorite player of all time, Mr. Dustin Hopkins,
My
the
boy.
Cleveland Browns. And Cleveland Browns currently are the Cleveland Browns. So,
My boy.
yeah. The one that really broke my heart was in 2013. That was on my birthday. This is when we had a 27-7 lead. D'Angelo Hall runs one back, makes it 21-7. Denver comes back. Obviously, at that time they had Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning just engineered this hell of a fourth quarter comeback. I think you guys scored like 24 points, final 24 points, and ended up beating us like 45-21. And it's crazy, and it was on my birthday, and I was like, you know what? I thought we was in the driver's seat to win that game, but obviously you can't. That's when I realized, hey, you can't count the sheriff. He's even with the Colts, he's burnt us several times, and that was just another installment of the sheriff coming to town, and hurt your hopes and dreams of a win. So shout out to Peyton Manning. And then, obviously, thanks Christmas. Halloween of 2021. That one stung. That one pissed me off, and I remember that day because I definitely thought we were gonna win that game. And
you should have won that game,
right? And I was just like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, that was when it pissed was an understatement, but that did lead us to a somewhat of a good run in November, December, so I think we had to experience that type of heartache to beat the GOAT 2 weeks later. So, I'll take it.
Oh, that was that season. You're right.
I just remember how bad that game was because we basically gave you a chance to win that game, and you guys didn't take advantage, unfortunately.
Yeah, we tend to do that from time to time.
Yeah.
Hey,
that's honestly what I thought was going to happen with this past game on Sunday. I thought we were going to find a way to lose it.
Yeah,
I really thought the Broncos were going to find a way to win after. Well, I think we had 13 points in the first half. We were up 10, and then the second half came and we only scored 3. So,
yeah. But you know what's crazy about all this, and it's funny because Jordan, you remember I've always say, I used to call you guys the Washington football team of the West. We both were quarterback short. Years ago, you get your quarterback, and I think we have our quarterback in the future. And it's funny, we meet at this crossroads now, and Sunday we had an eerily similar type of game. It's uncanny of how you guys had offensive struggles, we had offensive struggles, and it's crazy how like even now there's still some similarities about Washington and Denver, and it's weird how now we're at this intersection of we're both like having offensive issues and miscues, but in our case, we won a game. You guys had the opportunity to win the game as well, and I think we could, like you said, we was on the verge of losing this game. So very interesting. So we'll talk about so let's talk about some X factors, and then we'll do X factors first, and then we'll talk about the matchups to watch, the individual matchups or unit matchups that you guys seen. So first, we're gonna start off. Who's your X factor, Jordan? Who's your X factor in this matchup?
I am gonna go defense for us because it's one of our third year quarterbacks, Patrick Surtain, on defense. I mean, he's become an all-pro, defensive back. The guy can knock passes down. The Raiders actually stayed away from him because of the fact of what he can do. He can have, pass deflections. He can have interceptions. They only threw at him 3 times. So if you guys are going to throw to him that side, you better watch out because of what he can do on defense. He can tip it away. He can pick it off. So that's basically the X factor for us on defense. On offense, it's just that offensive line has to protect Russell Wilson. You guys have a pretty good defensive line, and I'm scared just because if we don't protect Russell Wilson, it could be a long day for us.
Sure. What you got, Rob?
What's crazy is they really still are the Denver football team of the West, or the Washington football team of the West, because Commanders have the same issues. If we can just protect Sam Howell, we'll be all right. Our defensive front was lights out. on Sunday, especially late in the game when it mattered the most. So a lot of similarities there in if our defensive front can keep Russell Wilson contained, um, and if our offensive line can just protect Sam Howell, don't give up 6 sacks, they have to come up with some type of scheme to improve that protection because it was not good on Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think I look at in as far as a X factor in the sense it's gonna be Jahan Dotson. I think him being matched up with Damari Mathis, I think is going to be something that I think if he's in a one-on-one matchup, I think he can explode him. I mean, you look at what Mathis did last week. He allowed 76 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I think that's going to be a matchup because I'm still iffy about what, obviously Patrick is saying you're not going to throw his way. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, especially when you're a young quarterback like that, don't risk it. Well, I don't know. I'm almost like what Bruce Aaron, don't risk it, no biscuit. The opposite.
Biscuit.
But don't risk it. Don't even worry about the biscuit. So I think that's going to be a matchup that I think we could potentially an X factor with Jahan Dotson. I think, and also too in the last 2 road games he has played, he has scored a touchdown. So hopefully this will be a situation where he'll continue his streak, and I think he'll be somebody that you can look at as far as somebody I think we can have a somewhat of a sizable advantage in this game, especially when you have a game that's I think is going to be so close. Even the most minute matchups can be the keys to a commander's win. So that's concerned. So, Jordan, what is your matchups to watch in our tilt on Sunday?
Well, honestly, I said it just a few minutes ago. It's honestly our offensive line versus your defensive line. If you look at last week, Russell Wilson, we gave up 2 sacks, but that doesn't account how many free rushers were coming his way. I mean, we had to deal with Max Crosby. This week is even tougher because of your defensive line. Your defensive line had 3 sacks last week. Now, if we don't protect Russell Wilson, that's going to be, sacks. That's going to be field position for, difference in field position. It's also going to make it tough for us to get anything going on offense. Plus, if we saw it last week and it almost cost us a fumble, the fact that he was pressured and Russell Wilson almost fumbled. But if you put constant pressure, especially if you have a spy on him, it's going to make us that much difficult to get our vertical passing game going.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Rob, what you got?
So you kind of alluded to it. You said you're not going to throw on Patrick Surtain, especially as a young quarterback. I beg to differ. I think Sam Howell's going to attack him, and that's the matchup that I'm excited to see. Patrick Surtain Jr. against scary Terry McLaurin. Because I don't care what you say. I'll argue. I'll fight with anybody who says otherwise. Terry McLaurin's the best wide receiver to come out that draft class. I don't care that they got A.J. Brown. I don't care about DK Metcalf. I don't care about Deebo Samuel. The one thing that they all have in common, and I won't even put Deebo Samuel because his quarterback situation has been murky. Terry McLaurin has put up the numbers he's put up with 9 different starting quarterbacks. You show me any wide receiver that's going to do something like that with 9 different, not even 9. It's not like we're having a revolving door of Hall of Famers come through. We're talking about, the late Dwayne Haskins. We're talking about Ryan Fitzpatrick. We're talking about Taylor Heineke. We're talking about a one-legged Alex Smith. Like the quarterbacks that this dude has had thrown to him. I'm getting off track, so let me get back on the what Terry's going to be able to do against Patrick Surtain. I'm excited to watch that.
Get him. Okay. Yeah. And I that's one thing I look at. I think you're gonna look at the trenches. I think when you look at as far as our offensive line versus their defense line, and I think one thing too is you can't essentially discount Denver's, defense. I mean, a lot, they don't have the brand names that we're so accustomed to. There's no Bradley Chubb. There's no, DeMarcus Ware. They aren't, just all these massive pass rushers, but they still got like guys like Randy Gregory, who was a thorn in our side in his Dallas days. Um, and can they keep Sam Howell from not getting sacked more than 6 times, like in this, especially when we looked at Arizona from a unit perspective. I'm not saying they're one of the worst defensive lines, but they're not middle of the pack. They're, as far as from a production standpoint, they're pretty much at the bottom. So, can we kind of keep them upright? And then on the other end, where you look at can uh, Denver's offensive line essentially contain guys like Montez Sweat on that edge, and then the interior, can they contain guys like Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne? Can will they will our defensive line will we get that penetration and get towards Russ Wilson? So that's going to be, to me, I think it'll be the intriguing matchup. I think this, especially in a game like how I think it's going to be. I think the trenches are going to be so important because both of us, like you said, we're going to be jostling for position. And I think, we even talk about we talked about some, I say you said like the minute detail of a matchup, but I think this is going to be kind of where the game is going to be won. It's going to be inside these trenches for sure, especially in a game like this, where I think we're so evenly matched up and we come into this game eerily similar. So it's got to be something that got to stick out, and I think it's going to have to be the trenches. Yeah. So, Jordan, so in order for you guys to get the 9th win in this series history, what has to happen? What are your keys to your Denver Broncos winning this game?
So offensively, we got to run the football more. We ran it 22 times, and actually we were effective last week against the Raiders. We had 94 yards. I think we had at least 4 yards per rush. That went away. We have to control the clock just so we don't put your offense back on the field. We got to protect Russell Wilson. And then looking at the defense, find a way to put pressure on Sam Howell. I can tell you, last week, we didn't put any pressure on Jimmy Garoppolo. He had tons of time to throw the football. Of course, he ended up winning the game because he ran for a first down. If we don't put pressure on Sam Howell, he's just going to step back in the pocket and find his open receiver. On special teams, I've been saying this all week. Will Lutz cannot miss field goals because that's actually what killed us last week. He missed a 55-yarder. What do the Raiders do? They go down the field. We can't do that against you guys. Also, we committed too many penalties last week. We had 10 for 83 yards. Those are just drive killers on offense. And as we know, what happens on defense, especially if it's third down and we get a defensive holding or illegal contact, that keeps you guys back on the field. We cannot commit these silly penalties. Also, I was happy we scored 13 points in the first half. We do that, we should win, but we have to score more in the second half. We only had 3 points in the second half. So fast start is needed, but also need to continue that momentum in the second half.
Yeah, right. So, let's see, Rob, what is the keys to getting our first victory in the Mile High in nearly 22 years? What you got, Rob?
We gotta protect Sam Howell. That goes without saying. We can't allow him to get sacked 6 times. Once again, it's going to take a toll on his body eventually later on down the season, if not sooner. I'm gonna, like I said earlier, establish the run game. Again, having 92 yards as a collective, as a unit, as a team, does not look good. It's not going to win you a whole lot of games in the regular season, and it's probably not going to give you a chance to get into the postseason to win games either. Once you establish the run game, you're able to make that play action work for you, and maybe you will get those routes ran by Terry McLaurin, who does beat Patrick Surtain once or twice throughout the game, and able to exploit that for big plays.
All right. I think we gotta limit our turnovers, and we gotta win the turnover battle. You look at especially offense. We had 2 turnovers last week. We had 1, so we had a -1 on the season. And I always say you got to be in that plus. If you want to be a contending team, you need to be in the plus as far as turnovers. Let Sam Howell cook. And we talked about how let Russ cook. Let Sam Howell cook. I think, you look at give him those opportunities where he can throw and have that ability. So then also pressure Russ. I mean, you look at last week, obviously it was, so pretty much that's what you look at it. Can we just get to Russell Wilson? I mean, he had 2 sacks. They allowed 2 sacks last week on them last week. So you look at, especially with that Raiders unit, can we have that same type of success? And then, and to your point too, Rob, protect Sam Howell. I mean, like you said, 6 sacks is unacceptable. Especially for that, and he took some shots, and this is just game one. So there's some, and like you said, we want to look at it from a long-term perspective, and those 6 sacks aren't going to cut it. Like he's, this team at a trajectory where he's going to get hit often and early. So, you got to protect Sam Howell at all costs in this matchup. Yeah. So, fellas, we got to get to prediction time. So, Jordan, who you got?
I know it's going to be a low-scoring game just because it feels that way with these two defenses playing pretty well. I mean, I'm going to be a little biased because I'm a Broncos fan, but I have us winning 21-17. I just don't see how either team's going to score over 24 points in this game.
Okay. What you got, Rob?
I think Jordan's right about a couple of things. I don't think anybody's going to score over 24 points. I think the Broncos will score 21 points. But I think Washington's going to be right there at that 24-point mark. I think it's going to come down to possibly a late field goal late in the game, if not a outright game winner. I got 21-24 Washington.
Okay. All right. And I think it's going to be I think there might be almost eerily similar time matchup in 2021 where it's going to just be a very low-scoring game. Definitely they're going to pull it off. I think Joey Sly kicks us to our first victory in nearly 22 years with a 17-14 victory in Denver and on back home to play Buffalo. So I think that it's going to be the case. And definitely, before we close out too, definitely shout out to my brother, chimed in. Commanders by 50.
Okay, if that
happens, I need to stock up water, beans, board up my windows. But hey,
so, if that happens, I'm going to sit here and wonder why the Broncos hired Sean Payton.
If that happens, I need to find a basement. And hide, because civilization is going to get the best of us if that happens. But hey, that would be wild. But yeah, man. But definitely, yeah, man. So we'll put a bow on our episode 63. So Jordan, tell them where they can find you on social media and also in the upcoming things that you got going on.
So you can follow me on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it at Sports Scoop 1. I also have a blog that I write Mondays through Fridays at sports-scoop.com. I also have a live sports show. I'll tweet it out on social media. It's called Under Review, which is my take on basically Colorado sports with a sprinkling of national sports headlines as well.
Yeah, for sure. Because I'm going to tell you one thing. When I address adults, I don't wear sunglasses in a hat. So,
oh, come on. That's Jay.
John made it personal.
You made it personal.
Yeah. The thing is, I didn't really take that as a diss. I will say, me, I'm a Colorado University fan first and foremost, but I want to see CSU do well, but not in this game. I want them to get crushed by 50.
Yeah. How am I going to fall asleep on Saturday? I'm like, I might watch this game and it'll probably be over by 11:30 midnight. So I think.
Exactly.
I think Eastern Standard Time.
Jordan, let me ask you, which one was worse? That one, or did you see what Oregon's coach said?
I didn't get a chance to.
They asked him how he feels about Colorado leaving the Pac-12. And he said something along the lines of, well, they haven't won anything for the Pac-12, so I mean, doesn't really affect us.
I would disagree with those comments because what was it? The COVID shortened year, we were almost won the Pac-12. There's one other year where we almost won the Pac-12. So he can say what he wants. That's okay. I understand the last few years have been, abysmal. So he is right. But I would disagree with those comments because there were a couple of years where we were bowl eligible.
Yeah.
I think we beat Oregon once too when they were ranked. So he can have his words. It's okay. I'm fine leaving the Pac-12. We're going for more money with the Big 12, which is funny because we were already in the Big 12, before we joined the Pac-12, which honestly I was not for the move, but I'm glad we're back to the Big 12, I should say.
For sure. Rob, where can find you on social media?
Y'all already know you can find me, FNC Pod on Twitter, Football and Show Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. I know I did say that yesterday was supposed to be my quarterback evaluation show. Had some things going on, so I'm gonna push that to next Wednesday. Cruise Island will be back next Wednesday. Again, evaluating the cost of quarterbacks and why it is detrimental to teams to sign these big money quarterbacks.
For sure. Yeah, and pretty much you follow our podcast, Commanders ITC. Pretty much everywhere you get social media, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and YouTube, Commanders ITC. Check out our live podcast every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That and then also my other show, Couch Coach Live, that airs every Wednesday, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So check out the website, couchcoachlive.com. Also, pretty much social media as well. Look up Couch Coach Live. And so we here. Episode 63 is in the books. Definitely appreciate you, George, for stopping through here on our Washington Commanders versus Denver Broncos preview.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So yeah, man. So we'll catch you guys next week. This has been this episode of Commanders in the Chat, and hail to the Commanders. Let's get this W.
2-0, baby.
Yes, sir.